Hey, you want to see something really hot? Look at all that juicy pixel thigh meat.
Did I just score?
Alright, it was different times and you had to make do with whatever you could get. And you couldn't get a peek at that delicious Samus cake unless you were pretty good at Metroid. You gotta beat the game in under 3 hours if you want to get a peek at the thigh meat, and if you manage to beat the game in under 1 hour, you get a little tummy action. And of course, if you can get either of those endings, you get to play as Samus your next playthrough without her suit. But what if you're absolute garbage at Metroid, and no matter what you do, you'll never be able to beat the game in under 3 hours? Well, I strongly believe in inclusivity, and a world in which even the trashiest of gamers can get a peek at that 8-bit Samus booty. And that's where the Justin Bailey code comes in. Next to the Konami code and the Mortal Kombat Blood code, the Justin Bailey code is probably one of the most famous codes in video game history. All you have to do is go to the Metroid password screen and enter Justin Bailey in all caps and then nothing but dashes. And then you spawn as suitless Samus. But who is this Justin Bailey that the code is named after? There's a few theories, and most of them are definitely wrong. One of the most popular things that people assumed about the code was that it was just named after someone who worked on the game. That's actually the explanation that I thought was true for most of my life, and it turned out that there's no such person who exists. A second popular theory about Justin Bailey was that it was some kind of slang word that came from England. People would say that a Bailey is a British word for swimsuit, and then she's just in her Bailey, so it's Justin Bailey. And if you're watching this and you're British, you already know that that's not a thing. That's just something somebody made up. A Bailey is not a swimsuit or anything resembling that. In fact, the Justin Bailey code probably didn't originally represent anything because it definitely wasn't put there on purpose. Rather, the Justin Bailey code is just a quirk of how Metroid's password system works. Here's an explanation from the Metroid database. The Justin Bailey password is a total fluke. If you play around with Metroid's password system, something you can do with the Metroid password generator program found in fan apps, you can come up with other names and words that work as passwords. The Justin Bailey code is one which was found early on and happened to work pretty well, so it became widely reported. And if we play around with one of these password generators, we can see that the Justin Bailey code is a code that can be created normally with how the password system works. It's super unlikely that a code that was put there deliberately by the programmers would also happen to check out as valid in the password system. And if you play around with it enough, you can find a lot of codes that'll do these kinds of things, such as the Dragon Ball Z code, or my new favorite, the Justin Whang code. You see, the Justin Whang code essentially dooms you to an immediate death by Metroids, but I guess life is just like that sometimes. There's only one password in this game that was put in deliberately by programmers and does not check out with the normal password system. Narpus Sword, or Nar Password. I'm not really sure what it means and there's a lot of debate over it. But essentially, this password is a god mode for Metroid that was probably put in there for testing purposes. If you test this code on a Metroid password generator, it doesn't check out as a valid code, yet it still works in the game. If the Justin Bailey code were put in there deliberately, it's very likely that the same thing would happen. So now that we know that the Justin Bailey code is a code that can hypothetically be generated organically by Metroid's password system, does that mean that it was? Did someone just happen to get the Justin Bailey code through a normal playthrough of Metroid? Definitely not, because even though it's hypothetically possible for the password system to generate this password, there's no way to play a game that would give you this password through normal means. And there's a few pieces of evidence for that. First of all, it's the missiles. If you use the Justin Bailey code, you start off with 255 missiles, which means that you would have all of the missiles in the game. But if you play the game with the Justin Bailey code, there are still missiles around to be picked up. In a normal playthrough, there would be absolutely no way to have that many missiles and still have missiles lying around to be collected. Oh yeah, and the code also makes the game think that you've logged nearly 600 years of playtime. Unless Justin Bailey was a time traveler who really liked Metroid, it just didn't happen that way. So what that means is that there's probably just some guy, probably named Justin Bailey, who tried his name as a code and it just happened to work. Not only did it work, it was an amazing code that was useful for a lot of people. But still, this is before the internet. It's not like Justin Bailey could have just went online and shared its code, so how do so many people know about it? The answer to this question probably lies at Nintendo Power. The earliest known published appearance of the Justin Bailey code was in the October 1991 issue of Nintendo Power. In this issue, there was a section promoting Metroid 2 that also included some tricks for Metroid 1. One of those tricks being the Justin Bailey code. This section, according to an interview on mentalfloss.com, was most likely written by a guy named George Sinfeld, who at the time was Nintendo Power's senior editor. Here's what George Sinfeld had to say about the code. The fact that Justin Bailey works as a password at all, let alone one that features a powered-up Samus, is pure coincidence and was not put into the game intentionally. Justin Bailey, Sinfeld says, is just one of the many working codes that happen to make sense to a human. And due to how Nintendo Power's editorial process worked, it's very likely that the trick actually was sent in by the Justin Bailey himself. If the password wasn't put in intentionally, that means someone happened to cross it by accident. And since no one is prone to typing in random proper names, it's possible that an actual Justin Bailey decided to try out his own name as a lark. The latter theory holds up. In order to compose the strategy guide, Sinfeld would have referred to in-house information as well as tips sent in by readers. And if you ask me, this is pretty much the only explanation for the Justin Bailey code that makes any kind of sense. But it's really strange to me that for all these years, no one seems to have come forward as the original Justin Bailey, not even really as a hoax. It's such a famous code, and you would have to figure that it would be a really mind-blowing, memorable moment for the person who discovered it. It's such a 1,000,000-to-1 thing that you would think that the original person, the original Justin Bailey, would want to claim some kind of responsibility for it. I don't know, maybe he died or something. RIP Justin Bailey. Anyway, if you like this video, go check out another gaming mystery. I'm out of here.